All right, Too Many Records fans, I have an awesome video today. I'm super excited. I have some very special guests. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
I am Justin Benson. I'm one of the filmmakers of The Endless.
I'm Moorhead. I'm one of the other filmmakers of The Endless.
I'm Jimmy LaValle. I did the score to The Endless, and I also make music under the album Leaf.
I'm a huge fan of everyone on this couch, and as it turns out, we all love music. So we're going to talk about music that inspires us as artists and people, and it's going to be great, so stick around and check it out. Alright guys, so you guys have a pretty interesting story of how you all met. They would love, but I would also love to hear it once again, so.
Yeah, basically when I first graduated from college, I had to move back home to San Diego for a little while. And Jimmy is like a god in San Diego. Very few people have any success.
Once was.
In the.
I've been gone too long. No, forgotten. I'm old news. I've told people I'm you in San Diego, and they just give me free stuff all the time. Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, oh, I moved home after college for a brief amount of time, and I'm bussing tables in a restaurant, and it's one of those cities where there's not very many avenues in entertainment to do anything to be employed. And somehow, through a mutual friend, I ended up getting a job as a videographer working for Jimmy, sort of documenting the making of Into the Blue Again, which is in this stack of records up here. So
That's right behind you.
It's right behind me.
Surprise!
There it is. I was expecting to like look back and someone snuck like Vanilla Ice behind me. but,
Which is fine. Don't throw shade, all right?
But yeah, somehow I was lucky enough to get hired to follow Jimmy around with a camera for like months. I followed you around on tour in the Southwest, and then we drove in your van up to Seattle to record this at Bear Creek Studios. We lived there for like 3 weeks. I got to follow you to Iceland to mix the album. So I was like this like not esteemed at all broke table busser, and I got to go to Iceland with like one of the most successful people in entertainment in my city. And while there, I was like, oh, I got to meet like Sigaros, I got to meet Bjork, I got to like
idols.
Yeah, hang out with this idol. And then we stayed in contact over the years. And then after Aaron and I made our first film, Resolution, that film didn't have a score because we didn't have money for it. And we're just like, well, if we don't have, we're not gonna just like try to have a score. We found a reason within the story it didn't need one. But our second movie, we couldn't pull that trick again. And we're like, we need like the best musician we know. And I was like, well, I knew this guy from back in the day.
I see where this is going.
Yeah, we got him to go have drinks with us, and we convinced him to work with us on our second movie, Spring. And then he did, a brilliant sort of, kind of legendary score now, where we run into composers randomly, and they'll be like, oh, you guys made Spring? Oh, I have the score on my phone.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's happened more than
honestly
once.
one of my favorite film scores.
Cool.
I wish it had a vinyl release. I really do.
It's coming.
Oh.
I didn't know. That's cool.
I just got chills.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then, obviously the collaboration on Spring went amazing. The way we always felt about it was that like, oh, he's too good to be working with us. And like to the point where it's like,
is that true?
When he puts on, like, we cut together the movie and we use some temp tracks. And when I'm sitting writing, I'm usually listening to like Cocteau Twins or like Dead Can Dance, like sort of weird, really epic sounding elevated music that doesn't belong in our films because our films are so understated. Yeah. But sometimes they end up as temp tracks and stuff like that. So Jimmy gets this cut with all this music that like doesn't fit, and as temp tracks, and then he just like he goes on his own. He makes some music, and well, it's 2 movies now, but whenever he plays us like the first tracks when we're sitting in a studio that he's come up with, the experience is like this. I look at Aaron. And Aaron looks like he's having like a transcendental experience. like he's just
definitely melted.
We have no idea how he does it.
And when I'm playing it, they're behind me, and I'm always like,
No, it's actually the worst because he'll play it and he's sometimes even adding to it as he goes, like hitting a couple notes on the
like live DJing his own
score,
and
stuff like that, and he'll just keep on doing it, and we're just kind of getting really into it. We're like, this is great, this is great.
Saying anything, and I'm just like,
and then because we're really into it, and he's thinking we're just dying behind him, and then he'll just stop it and like throw it in the trash can, be like, or something like that, right? And then he like deletes the project file. And we're like, no, wait, no, it's amazing.
My wife and I watched Resolution, and we were like, holy shit, like this is great. Like I was just totally blown away. Like,
yeah, me too.
like, you know, kid's got something or something. I don't know, like
Got
something like that.
moxie.
Basically,
It's
like,
like,
I
he
was just
seems
like,
so stupid.
Yeah.
I just
But
know him
was
as
thinking,
camera
like,
boy.
You know, it's like when you met somebody a long time ago that I made a film. Like, oh, okay, cool, he made a film. And
Right.
you're like, well, this film was like, this
Yeah,
is fantastic.
like it's different between like a film and a film.
Right. And then we had drinks, and you're like, I have this script and this idea for the next film, and I was just like, cool, that sounds great. And I think like 4 months or so, like maybe went by, or 6 months went by. I still like when we first met, like didn't think it was actually.
Take the little Italian
Yeah,
boys.
it's like, oh yeah, sure, I'm gonna score a film. Yeah, like because I hadn't heard back, and
Yeah.
I haven't heard from them. And then they reached out, and again, it was like, okay, awesome. So then it happened. So
That score, I mean, both scores he's done for us. Again, it's overwhelming, like, how grateful we are, how much we love that music. But Spring in particular, something that's interesting there is there's literally probably no one else that could have done it, and that it would have been ultimately what we wanted.
With like the pretty subtlety of like just like
Because it's a love story.
yeah,
And
exactly.
that's hard. You know,
Easy to get saccharine.
it's hard.
Yes.
To, like,
Yeah.
Dishonest, yeah.
Jimmy's incapable of being corny.
Yeah,
Now, when I think
that's
of one
very
characteristic
true.
Jimmy has, is incapable of being corny.
Yeah.
So.
It
I don't-
really is a perfect fit. Coming from someone who's been a fan of the album length music for a long time, and then seeing the movie, it's like it's so natural. Like it's just these fibers come together in a way that it just doesn't feel. It just feels like it had to be that way, and that's awesome that it ended up working out like that. It's like magic. It's like a fairy tale ending for the production of the film, which is great. Well, I haven't seen The Endless yet, much to my frustration, and hopefully that will be soon. The movie comes out
It'll be rolling out in nationwide in April. Yeah.
my birthday month, so it is a birthday gift to me.
That's
the
why we
release.
chose it, of course.
I knew it. I
Yes,
had a
of
feeling
course.
that was the case. I would love for you guys to talk a little bit more about The Endless. Why don't you give a little synopsis of what we have to look forward to when this comes out for all of our eyes to enjoy? And
Wanna
ears,
give
of
it?
course.
I mean, let's take a shot at it. The truth is, we never had to pitch this movie, so I don't have the canned log line in
Pretend
my
like
head.
the movie just got canceled, and I'm the guy you're pitching it to.
Yeah.
I'm the yes man.
The Endless is about two brothers who fled what you presume, and there's a lot of indication, was basically like a UFO death cult, sort of like Heaven's Gate or something like
Okay.
that. And they fled like a decade ago. And at the beginning of the movie, they receive a tape from the cult, and they watch it, and the younger brother looks to the older brother, and he's like, yo, you said that they killed themselves a decade ago, but they're sending us tapes, so they're clearly still alive. Our lives here are horrible outside the cult. And by the way, I'm not even sure if it was really a cult, and I just have good memories of the place. He convinces his older brother to go back for a day just to say goodbye because they're non-threatening before they actually do the deed. And when they get there, they discover there may be some truth to their otherworldly beliefs.
Yeah. So if you like
Awesome.
movies like
I'm like salivating
Yeah.
listening. I'm like, okay, what
Yeah.
happens next?
Oh well, I mean, there's a trailer online. It's gonna be out.
Wow.
It'll be out in theaters, theaters only actually, which is kind of cool. Instead of coming out digitally at the same
Yeah.
time, we actually have a real theatrical
That's
window.
awesome.
All throughout April and in most major cities. And but if you like movies like Annihilation or Arrival or what other kind of movies, good movies.
It's hard though, because this goes back to this thing of like, oh, we genuinely just do what interests us, and we're sure we're unconsciously inspired by things, but that ultimately we don't do homage movies and we don't lean into nostalgia, so sometimes it's hard to find like comps.
Mhm.
We're like, oh, it's like this exactly, because at least we strive for it to be its own thing.
Yeah.
Which brings us again to Jimmy's music, and Jimmy, you have
All comes full
and
circle.
records, and when today Jimmy sent us like vaguely what the vinyl release would look like. And
Yeah,
it's
can you talk
really
about
cool.
the vinyl release? Because I remember I've been saying to them, like, since spring, I was like, you need to make sure that he puts this on vinyl because it's so good. And now you're saying there's going to be vinyl release.
yes.
Tell me more.
So I have my own label, and I've been self-releasing like a handful of records, like Ford Return EP I did myself.
Mhm.
That was before I kind of like had a realization of it, but I just knew that like I had the means to basically press up CDs and press up vinyl. My first kind of official releases were that was my reissues of my first two records from '99 and 2001. But I kind of like started it because I wanted to have a vehicle to release, lack of a better word, just like whatever I wanted to,
Mhm.
you know.
No red tape at all. It's just
yeah,
like,
like
this is what I
I'm
wanna
just
do.
like
Yeah.
the sadly, as vinyl fans, is what this show is about. Like the art or the idea of a record is kind of dying, with like streaming taking over and shuffle and Spotify and radio stations or digital radio stations. All of those things are kind of killing the album, like the sequencing of a record. Because for me, having made records for the last 25 years, like every time I put a record together, I think about what song follows the next and how they go into each other, and how if you put on this record, you're going to hear it, and what you're going to experience it.
Totally.
Like, the sequence of everything, and that art is basically dying. But basically, like, I started my own label to be able to just release all the soundtracks that I've done, and it's basically a vinyl focused label. It's like everything's gonna be vinyl. It's gonna be something special, like like all of the reissues were die cut, with like just kind of like just try to do things special. Like,
People
and also
appreciate those touches. As the
Yeah.
collectors appreciate it, and just like
every single press is gonna have 100 on gold, and then everything else is pretty much been starburst or marbled or something like that.
Yeah, the pink and white
Yeah.
just came out so like
Yeah.
that's one of my
That came
favorite
out really
variants
great.
matched
Yeah.
with like the cover.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
totally. So our designer that I work with too, that we work with in England, he's pretty amazing too. He's designed, I think, 4 album leaf records as it is now, and then also like most of our posters, tour posters, and T-shirts and things like that. He's just really talented. His name is Alex Damon. Short story long. The digital version of the soundtrack will be out with the theatrical version of the record, or of the film, and then the vinyl version is coming out in June.
For both spring and for
Not for spring,
Okay.
but for the Endless.
Cool.
But basically, spring is just kind of in the,
it's in the backlog.
it's in the
like,
backlog of things that are going to be released.
That's so awesome.
Do you realize how, for us, the idea that there's gonna be a vinyl version of the soundtrack to Spring and the Endless that we can have in our homes?
Yeah.
Do you realize how, like, genuinely how exciting that is for us?
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's
Me
like,
too.
And for me, I'm not even involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
cool.
it'll be
for
limited.
that.
They're all
Coolest.
limited. Like, they're all limited basically 1,000,
Yeah.
So,
Put me down for golds
right.
for both.
Pre-sale. Gotta catch the pre-sale on the website.
Oh man, I'm gonna miss it.
Yeah.
This was awesome, guys. Thank you. I'm so
Thank you.
excited for the movie and all the success that's been happening and is going to happen once the world gets to see it finally. I'm excited to see it. Any more album leaf stuff in the works that we can look forward to?
Yeah, I have, like I said earlier, like I have a ton of material, and I'm trying to like just figure out how to release it and what I want to release it as. And yeah, I mean, I have a ton of stuff. It might be under the album leaf, it might be under something different, but I don't know. I've done album leaf since '99, so it's kind of it's gone on 20 years, which is nuts.
It's awesome.
So I'm not really sure what.
And stayed consistent,
And
which is
stayed-
fantastic. Not a lot of artists can say they put out a lot of albums. They were all great.
Well, that's it. Thank
And it's proof that they're all on this table.
you. Yeah, well, thank you.
Stick around for the next part for more awesome talk about records and movies and all this good stuff. Check this out. This is a behind-the-scenes look at some of the recording of the music for The Endless.
Jimmy couldn't make derivative music if he tried. If we said like, hey, we want something like Hans Zimmer, we want something like, John Williams, he'd be like, yeah, I'll try. That sounds like a dumb idea. I don't know how to do that. And what he'll create, one, won't be like that, and two, will be better than anything we could have invented on our own. So his scores don't sound like anything else, and that's why he always gets the first call for composing our movies.
To watch him work, you'll be talking to him in the room about what you're thinking, what you would want. And when you're communicating with your composer as a filmmaker, especially since most filmmakers like us, we're not musicians as well, unfortunately. When you're communicating with them, you communicate through emotions. You say, I want this to feel melancholy, or I want this to feel dark and dangerous.
I remember the words we were using so much. There was epic Viking horn.
Yeah, I want epic Viking horn. He'd be like,
Drum-
okay.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Drum. Old ancient power. And he's like, old old ancient power, and he's like this, and we're like, not like that, and he's like this, and I'm like, yes!
And you just see him running around his studio trying different things.
He's got like a million instruments all over the studio.
And you can hear it forming, and it's getting better and better and better, and he's at his keys, and he's sampling stuff, and he's doing it, and then you hear it, you're like, oh my god, that was the most thing I've ever heard, and then he just stops, and he turns around, and he goes, is it just something like that?
Yeah, something like that. And we're like, you did it already. It's great. It's great. He's like, yeah, I'll work on it. Actually, and then he like deletes the file. And we're like, no. And what he always ends up with is something that now ends up on my Spotify playlist. So
yeah. In filmmaking, I think there's 2 times where you see magic that you can't explain, and it's your favorite take of any scene when you're on set and you see a performance. And you're like, oh, that was it. That was perfect. And you've seen like magic between people happen that you can't quite explain. And then the only other place you really see it is making the score, is in music. When you're watching Jimmy make music, you feel like you're watching magic.
You feel like you're watching an assemblage of edits of something that you were right there for turn into that magical thing that we call like a movie.